Okay, this is the preview of the final for Political Science 305. It's 3 questions. They're all essays. It is 100 points. The first 2 essays are worth 30 points each. The third essay is worth 40 points. Please stick to the word count provided. These are due May 13 at midnight. 2 of the questions relate to the coronavirus as handled by city and state governments. I will, starting Wednesday, be doing weekly coronavirus updates about kind of what I see happening in local and state government around this, so you have some kind of idea what to work with. These are not the final questions, but they will be very much like this. So you can get working on the questions based on what I'm telling you. I'm just reserving the right to edit the content, the questions themselves slightly. Here it goes. Question 1 is about devolution. Devolution is, of course, moving power and policy from the federal government to states and localities. This coronavirus is giving us a real chance to look at devolution in action. The question is going to be something like, describe the strengths and weaknesses of federalism in the time of coronavirus. You'll want to define the terms federalism and devolution, discuss the role of the federal, state, and local governments under federalism, just in general, then look at the strengths and weaknesses of the concept during a pandemic. Conclude with a projection about how the concept of federalism will impact the post-pandemic recovery efforts. So your first paragraph is basically a definition, your own definition of federalism and devolution. Next paragraph will be talking about how the government has operated in the coronavirus, which has been largely to shift the responsibility to states and localities. And so you're going to talk about how this concept of federalism and devolution has worked in light of what's happening today. And then your third paragraph will be how we're moving into a recovery stage after this. Hopefully this will be over in the next 6 months to 24 months. How will federalism have changed as a result of the federal government's response to the coronavirus, and what we are looking at the federal government kind of expecting of states and localities going forward? And so what will the recovery look like in terms of devolution? This should be 350 to 500 words. Please stick within those limits, and this one is worth 30 points. The next one is looking at laboratory of democracy, and again in terms of coronavirus. So the states have been called the laboratory of democracy. We've talked about that in the class, which means that every state and every locality is able to do things the way they see fit within certain guidelines. How has the ability of states to set their own policy shaped the course of the disease from February 15th to May 15th? Which states were more successful and which states had more trouble dealing with the pandemic? Give examples from at least 5 states. So one of the things that you'll start off with some sort of statement about the states are laboratories of democracy, and we see this played out in terms of the coronavirus. And then your next paragraph will talk about how, in general, broadly, what states have what states have the power to do in terms of the coronavirus. And then I want you to do 5 bullet points with just short descriptions of what each of the 5 states have done, and talk about a little bit about whether it was successful, it was a failure, etc. And you're going to and these can just be bullet points, and this again should be 350 to 500 words. Please stick within the limit, and it is worth 30 points as well. Okay, question 3. We're going to move on from coronavirus on this one, and this you're going to look at policies, comparative policies. And for this, basically, you'll refer back to the videos that your colleagues made and discuss at least 3 policy areas on how the individual jurisdictions do government. So you want to, the first paragraph will be a discussion of how local political culture, partisanship, and local leadership kind of shapes policy. And then your next three paragraphs will be short descriptions of how policy is executed at the state level using three different policy areas like homelessness or environment or education or gun control or any of the kinds of things that your peers brought up. This one's a little longer. It's 500 to 700 words and it's worth 40 points. So that is kind of a brief summary of what the questions are going to look like. Again, the wording may change slightly, but this will be the gist of the final exam.